Hey, good morning, everybody. K1 GMM here, Steve, in rainy southwestern Vermont. This is the middle part of this is pre-recorded, so I figured I'd push it live in case anybody had any questions, which most likely everybody's working today. It is Monday morning and holiday week, but figured I'd take a chance and I can do all of this in one shot. Time is money. Anyways, this is kind of a part 2 to the comparison video between the Sun and the G2 Anan. This is focused on AM because I've been doing a lot of AM lately. I haven't been making, nor do I have the desire to do many sideband contacts or work any. I am going to start trying to work some DX on AM, which I find kind of intriguing. But this is kind of a pseudo deep dive into the differences between the two transceivers and how they handle the AM mode and modulation. Both of them are superb in the AM mode. There are some fairly, what I consider major differences in how they handle the modulation. And I'm going to show you what I've been talking about because I don't like talking smack. So I back everything up. Proof is in the pudding. And I want to actually show you guys, and anybody who's running anyone who's running either of these transceivers, I'll just point out some things that may help you. Of course, everybody's situation is a little different, but I think it's going to be fairly interesting. Overall, the differences aren't severe. Right? They aren't radical or drastic, and most likely on the receiving end, nobody's going to know the difference. Both of them perform equally well on AM, especially the audio quality. I get great audio reports on either transceiver. My goal is to produce, like how I approach this, and I'm not going to draw this out. How I approach AM, I do a lot of listening down in the AM broadcast window, down around 1 megahertz to 1.7 megahertz, somewhere in there, below the 160 meter band. And I'll kind of work my way through that band and get a good clean signal, and I'll listen to it really closely. And I'll try and find someone who has a similar voice that I have, and listen to it and try and emulate that, right? But almost throw a little bit of rocket fuel on it, so it's actually better than AM broadcast. In my view, there's room for a little fudging, little interpretation. Just me. You can be a purist, of course, and literally, there's something called, I think, an optimod that produces a very certain sound on AM. But I think playing with AM has actually taught me a lot because of not just the bandwidth, but kind of approaching it from almost a purist standpoint, but having the background of having ESSB audio, playing a lot with the ESSB stuff, right? Extended single sideband, which is kind of like AM because you've got only one sideband. But now AM, you've got 2 sidebands, right? And of course, the way the modulation works. So kind of interesting. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and roll the video. And this is probably about 19 minutes long. So this is going to be a short video, but it's going to Just going to show the differences between the two radios. I'm going to start out with the Sun, and then I'm going to go to the Anan, and I'm not going to talk during this. So I'm going to go ahead and kill a microphone, get over to the other screen, and we will roll it. Okay, folks, this is the Sun SDR2DX on AM. Some things I wanted to go over. Sorry about the audio. It's a little bit low. You guys are just going to have to cope with that. I'm trying to keep it balanced and prevent clipping. Seems to be unique to this AM profile with OBS. So she's about 5 to 10 dB low off of 0 dB. So I'm going to try and keep it here. So what I'm going to do, this is kind of part 2 of the comparison between the Anan and the Sun on AM regarding just the AM mode. This isn't a general deep dive into the comparisons between sideband and the other modes. This is strictly for AM and things I have found. So what you're seeing on the screen right here is I do have the AGC engaged, and I move the attack down to 0.1 milliseconds. Now, even if you save this profile at 0.1, it will default back to 1 millisecond. So you have to go back in and change this. I can't really tell if it's that much different between 1 millisecond and 0.1 millisecond. It's splitting hairs. I did move the maximum amplitude up to 4 dB, and there's something very specific I want to show you regarding the mic gain. So the mic, I have this, of course, I'm doing all the audio virtually through the software, and then it's fed to both rigs the same way, all virtually. So on this radio, this is a critical setting right here. So you'll see it's at 19 dB. Now, when I key this up and I talk, I'll show you how critical this is. So the first thing I want to show you is, remember I talked about the negative peaks and the downward carrier level under modulation on the Sun. This is a way to fix this. So before I go any further, let me jump over to this screen. So what I ended up doing is I run a mild level of compression to kind of smooth it out. This is the modern compressor. I took the Brit pressor out, and I put in the modern limiter as well. So this provides an element of limiting, hard limiting, the way I have this set up, which is important. You want to provide a certain level of hard limiting to prevent those negative peaks and prevent it from dropping in carrier level under modulation. This is unique to this radio and many other radios. I've even seen boat anchors doing this. I watched the carrier level and the S meter on a lot of people's transmissions, and you'll actually see the meter drop under modulation. So this is not unique to the Sun. This is a very common problem, especially with rice burners like ICOMs, stuff like that, trying to make them work on AM. And I'm wondering if it has to do with overdriving the ALC or the mic gain and or the mic gain on the particular radios. Regarding the Sun, I believe that is the case. So you do not want to exceed 0 dB on the mic meter up here when you're modulating. I have gotten it to work without the AGC engaged, and with these settings, I can't really hear a difference. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to demonstrate this. You'll see the meter right in here on the bottom left-hand corner. And if you watch the meter, watch I have it set at the 200 watt level, and it's the middle scale right here. this scale. So if I key it up quick, okay, you see about 10 watts of carrier. So that's 10 watts of carrier. Now, I'm not sure if I should play. I'm not going to play the audio through. I was going to use SDR console, so let me close this. What I want you to do is this is a visual, more of a visual thing. So I'm going to close console, and I'm going to just stay on the microphone audio for now. So, and this is a visual example of what's happening with the radio. So with these settings, I am running the equalizer in here as just kind of a fine tune coming out of the THEUS side. This is the P220 AM SDR2DX experimental profile. So I'm still working on it. I get stellar audio reports out of both radios, the G2 and this radio. Just stunning reports on AM. So this isn't so critical. I mean, technically you can I did test it, and I took out all of the processing in the processor on the Sun. And I also I bypassed VST host and went direct with a microphone straight to the radio. It sounds horrible, but it didn't change anything. So it's not the pre-processing before it hits the radio. It's not that. It's how the radio is handling the modulation in the AM mode and affecting the carrier in a negative way. So with these settings, I've got it down. So I've got a positive swing always. So let me key it up, and what I want you to do is I want you to watch the middle range, and you're going to see the needle come up to 10 on the carrier, and then watch where it goes under modulation. Watch to see if you see it drop. And what I found is that oftentimes it'll drop. I'm a baritone, so I have a lot of bass tones in my voice. It's just the way it is. And I can't do any, well, I could strip it all out, but I'd sound like, crap. So, it seems to happen on the bass tones, not the top end. So that's something for you guys to watch for. I'm just doing this to help you guys get it set up so it really sings on AM, and it does. And I'm going to show you, point out some differences between the G2 and the Sun. So this is just the Sun, so I went through all of that stuff. So I'm going to key it up, and you watch. You'll see the meter come up to 10 right here. That's 10 watt carrier, and then under modulation, you'll see it come up probably to about 15 watts under modulation. Now this is on average power. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to peak envelope power. And here's the difference. I believe that you're going to see a difference between the two radios and how they handle AM. All right, but first we're just going to do the average power. So I'll key it up. Okay, and we'll do some talking, and you can see the carrier up. Sierra, Sierra, Sierra. There's 15 watts. Sierra, Sierra. So I'll just talk normally here, and you can watch under modulation. Yes, we do get some positive peaks there. There's no dip in the carrier level. Now, if you look up here at the top right-hand corner, this is the mic, the input, the audio input level. You'll see that this pretty much doesn't go above like 2.5, minus 2.5 dB. It does not go above zero. You do not want it to go above zero, because then if you look at the meter, what'll end up happening is the carrier level, the output will actually drop. It'll go down as you modulate. So there you go on that. I'm going to switch it to peak envelope power. So it's idling at 10 watts. Sierra, Sierra, there's 15, 16 watts. So I'm going to unkey. Okay, 10 watt carrier. So peak envelope power is approximately Sierra, Sierra testing 1, 2, about 45 watts, 46 watts, roughly 45, 46 watts, modulated on peak envelope power from 10 watts. Okay, so that's 45 45 watts. Okay, so remember that number, 45 watts on the Sun and SDR2DX on peak envelope power. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a demo of the G2 the exact same way. And what I think you're going to see is you're going to see an increase in peak envelope power with the same carrier level. And I'm going to show you the difference with how each radio modulates. All right, we'll be back. Okay, we're back with the Anan G2 running THEUS. This is 2.10.3.6 RC3 version from September 15th, 2024. It is not the latest current version of THEUS, but we're going to go with this anyways. So what we've got is some things I want to point out to you. I am on a different audio profile. This is the profile. The Anan G2 operates differently than the Sun SDR2DX, also sounds different. Doesn't sound any better or any worse, but it's just different. So I stumbled upon this and I set up a different profile for each radio. Let me jump over really quick. I'll show you what's going on. So this is very different. Well, not extremely different, but I'm using the Compressor on this one with a mild compression and some hard limiting. All right, so let's jump back over to THEUS. And a couple things I want to show you about THEUS. Let's get in here, setup, and this is strictly for AM. Remember, I'm not talking about anything else. So if we go to, I think it's DSP, AGC, yes, ALC, this is where I have my level set for the leveler and ALC. So the ALC, I have max gain at 3 dB and decay milliseconds at 10. Max gain on the leveler is at 15 and decay is at 100. The leveler is enabled. You want that enabled. Okay, one thing I want to point out, I do not run pure signal on THEUS on AM. Sometimes it's been known to go wonky. You don't need it. So I'm on and before I was on a 10 kilohertz AM profile on the Sun. This is also on a 10 kilohertz AM profile. All right. Two things I wanted to point out, the leveler and the ALC in the container here. These are two critical things I always look at. So with those settings being said, I just showed you in the setup. I'll show you the way this modulates, and it is interesting. These radios are, remember I said the Anan is superior to the Sun in the way it modulates. You don't have to be ultra hypercritical as far as slamming the door shut on the Anan, because THEUS with a leveler, the way the leveler works, it works excellent in preventing those negative peaks. Absolutely superb. Very easy radio to configure for AM. The point of this is that if you have a Sun, don't be dismayed, because you'll see the difference. There is a slight difference in the modulation, but I can tell you the way they both sound is absolutely amazing. I get the same audio reports on the Sun I get on the Anan. Doesn't matter. So I just wanted to show you the difference. It's my personal belief that the Anan is easier. Believe it or not, it doesn't make any sense, right? It's actually easier to configure and set up. Just basically a couple clicks of the mouse and you're off and running. Where you got to be a little careful with the Sun. The way the Sun handles the ALC and the peaking with the audio coming in, it's a little tricky. You got to get things under control, spend some time, way more time with the Sun than you do with the Anan. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to key it up. I have a 10 watt carrier. Again, watch the middle row of the display. You'll see the needle come up to 10. And then you will see, and sorry, I'm very close to the microphone. I got to stop talking loud. I don't want to clip it. I have to lean in for this. So you'll see it go to 10, and then watch where the modulation goes. Remember, the sun was about 15 watts. This is on average. So let's do it. We'll key it up, and we'll take a look. Okay, there's a 10-watt carrier. Testing 1, 2, Sierra. So we got about 17 to 18 watts increase in carrier. And you see no downward deflection on the meter under modulation. Never goes below 10 watts. Testing 1, 2, test. Roughly very similar. Testing 1, 2, about 17 watts. 17. Sierra 1, 2. Sierra, that's maybe just clipping 18 watts. Okay, so let me unkey this, and then we're going to go to PEP. Now watch this. Okay, 10-watt carrier. So there you go. We picked up Sierra 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Audio 1, 2. Maybe 5 watts. 4 to 5 watts. Remember, the sun was peaking about 45 watts. So this is peaking about 50 watts. So we actually picked up 5 watts under modulation on peak envelope power. Now, if you watch here, here's something I want you to pay attention to. Look at where the ALC is. I do not slam ever, even on sideband, the ALC or the leveler. It just kind of floats. See how it's just once in a great while it'll bump 0 dB. You do not need to have it literally crushed and slammed. So this is controlled. Once you have your leveler and your ALC set up here in setup, everything comes down to the output of the audio, which is flowing out of Voicemeeter Banana into THEUS. So that's controlled with one slider. So set your audio up. Let me unkey this. So what you want to do is you want to set your audio up for both radios. Here. Make sure your outputs, nothing's clipping. Okay. Test 1, 2, testing. Make sure nothing's clipping anywhere. And let me pull up Mr. Potato Head. So for both radios, what I did is I set up the radios independently so that I never have to touch the output slider here on Voicemeeter aux, which is sending the audio to the rigs virtually, to the input of the rigs. So I configured all the configurations for AM with this particular microphone to run the same level on the slider and just altered things in the radios to get the same result without having to ever touch this. Very rarely do I have to touch this. So that's what's going on there. All right, so that pretty much ties everything off. I think I covered everything. And as you can see, you pick up a little bit of power. Just the way the Anan modulates, it modulates a little bit better. There is such a thing as too much positive peaks, I think. I don't know. But yeah, this radio cranks on AM. Again, the shortfall with this radio is the receiver. So I was actually on it the other morning, this a couple mornings ago, and we've got heavy weather that's come in to the northeast here, and there was a lot of static crashing, and I had to shut it off. I couldn't deal with it. So I went back to the sun. So either radio is perfectly adequate and capable of truly better than broadcast quality audio on AM. No question about it. It's just they handle the modulation a little bit differently. So there you go, folks. This will be pushed as a premiere, and I will catch you guys over there. Okay, that's it, guys. I'm out of here. Wanted to keep this under a half hour, and we're at 25 and a half minutes. So that's good. I will wait for a moment. Actually, while I'm waiting, if there are any questions, I'll try and answer them. Most likely not. Don't forget, I have a person that jumped in and wants to do an interview. Said he'd agree to have me interview him, which I think could be really, really neat. That is strictly for what I'd like to do is showcase folks, bring folks in and let them tell their story. So it's going to be kind of like story time, and it doesn't matter, what you're interested in. What I'd really like to show, I think it's going to be interesting if I get some responses out of 5,000 plus subscribers. If I only get 1 or 2 responses, I may shut the channel down because that's ridiculous. That just is sickening. So I'm praying that doesn't happen. If that does happen, what I'll do is I'll do a general shout out to non-subscribers. Maybe I'll get more. I'm not chastising you guys. I'm just saying, being able to show the diversity in this hobby, I think, is really important. There is something literally for everyone in this hobby. Everybody's into all kinds of different things. So I'd like to just get people on, and it doesn't matter if you only want to get in there for 15 minutes. Hey, that works. I'm planning on half-hour slots, no more than a half hour. So nice and pithy. Not quite a hit and run, but not a big diatribe either. So we will catch you guys later. I see nothing else in the chat. If I'm not back, Happy New Year. And we will catch you guys soon. 7-3. Thanks for stopping in, guys. And thanks for the support to the channel.